You're listening to The Real Deal on Supertalk 99.7 WTN. I am your host, Kim Hollingshead. Guys, before the break, we were talking about the reason why Black Americans own real estate at a lower rate than white Americans and, you know, the historical facts that have led to that situation. But here's I think it's like one of the coolest stats out there, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys. You guys, of Black homeowners, 50% of them are single women. They own property at a much higher rate than Black single men. I just think that is so cool and it blows my mind. I just admire Black women so much for not sitting around waiting for someone to put a ring on their finger, but they get out there and they buy that house on their own, and good for you. Guys, I want to talk to you about who is the head of HUD. His name is Scott Turner. He runs the housing department basically for the entire United States. And this is who he is. This is where he basically got his start in life. He grew up in Dallas. His parents were divorced when he was 10, and that's going to result in them not having very much money. He watched an uncle of his go through homelessness. You know, as a kid, he would wash dishes at a barbecue restaurant just to try to make a little bit of extra money. But he managed to get a full scholarship to the University of Illinois. Then he was drafted into the NFL in the 7th round. He was picked 226, which was like almost at the dead last, but he played for 9 seasons. He became a pastor. He started a foundation for kids in poverty. He served in the Texas legislature, and then he ran now he runs a White House program that moves over $50 billion into struggling communities. So he started out as a dishwasher, and now he runs all housing for the United States. I think that is such a cool story, but we're going to come back to him in just a few minutes. Now, this is what he did, and just, you know, which I think is like incredible. So Turner basically changed the way that we qualify for a mortgage in this country. Basically, for many, many years, qualifying for a mortgage, the interest rate that you got, everything came down to one number, which was your FICO score. It's your credit score. Well, the thing is that the FICO score is built almost entirely on credit cards and car loans. And as we talked about in the second segment, that, you know, the person who pays rent for 7 years, who never misses a utility bill, gets 0 credit for that. But somebody who has credit cards and car loans can suddenly build up a FICO score. So what happens is it breaks people. You know, it's an old system and it's really not fair. And we talked about how Black Americans tend to have fewer credit cards and fewer car notes than white Americans do. So right there, discrimination is baked into it. Now, I want to be very careful here to say that I am not a fan of approaching racism in a way that just looks for an equal result. We want to always make sure that there's equal opportunity, right? When you have a system, the system itself is built in such a way that makes it impossible to have a equal opportunity. That's when we have problems. So here, Turner, who is now the head of the housing financing, the head of HUD, and also Bill Pulte, who's the head of Fannie and Freddie, they completely changed the system. Now they have these like newer scoring models. One of them is called the VantageScore 4.0. The other one's called the FICO 10T, and it actually takes into account rent and utility payments. So that's something that first-time homeowners never had before. First-time home buyers, they never had that before. They never had an opportunity to use rent and utility payments to qualify for a mortgage. And I think it's so cool that he's made this change. Now, look, here's the thing. It's going to be rolling out. These changes are not going to all happen at once. They're going to roll out. They're going to roll out, you know, starting with big lenders. And then, you know, not every single lender right now is on board with this. But I can tell you that the lender that we are partnered with, Carrie Ann Sear at CMG Mortgage, she's part of the Real Deal Trusted Network. She can absolutely help you with this. Give us a call, text the word buy to 615-257-0565, or give us a call. It's 615-257-0565. We will connect you with Carrie Ann and her team. Now, look, here's the things that you want to go ahead and do to get ready, since we know that if you're renting and you're a listener at the show, that you're going to be buying in 2026, right? But why not? It's a great time to buy. Prices are the best that they're going to be for a long time. Get ready now, spend the next few months to get ready. And then when the rates fall, which I predict will happen in the last quarter of this year, that the rates are really going to start coming down. We got midterm elections coming up, and President Trump is not trying to lose the House and the Senate. He's trying to maintain his majority so he can get his entire agenda through. And he knows that interest rates are going to be a huge factor to play. Anyway, so here's what you can do now to get ready to buy a house. Number one, get your rent reported. There are companies called Rent Track, Rental Karma, or like even Experian has a rent bureau. The sooner that your rent is in the system, the sooner that it's actually going to count. So go ahead and make sure that your rent is reported. Number two, ask the lender, do you use VantageScore 4.0 or FICO 10T? If they don't know what you're talking about, give us a call, 615-257-0565. And number three, if you were turned down before for a loan, get a second opinion. Give us a call, because the new models that, we're operating now, they didn't come out until just 2 months ago in April of 2026. So, under these new models, your credit score could come out higher and you could actually qualify for a loan today. I think that's amazing. And number four, pull all of your credit reports completely for free. Go to someplace like annualcreditreport.com and pull it and just take a look at it. But definitely, you want to make sure that you talk with an actual loan officer, because the tools are already on the table. Like if you're a first-time home buyer, if you're Black, Hispanic, a woman, a veteran, 2026 has more runway for you in terms of being able to buy a house than any other time in our country's history. It is so incredible to be an American in 2026. I'm telling you, it's like my favorite year of all time. Okay, so let's take a look at FHA loans. With a score of only 580, you can buy. You put 3.5% down, okay? And so if you're going to be buying like a $250,000 home, you need to have about $750. That's like $8,750. A lot of sellers are actually giving credits towards closing costs prepaids, but you have to come up with the down payment. Now, listen, if you don't have down payment money, that's okay. Give us a call, because like I said, through the housing fund, through THDA, through a lot of different resources, we can get you down payment assistance. I used down payment assistance on my first home. I used it. I was a title attorney already at that time, and I used down payment assistance and a THDA loan to buy my first house. So there's no shame in that game. Use it. You could actually buy a house and even get your earnest money back. Actually walk in the door for less money that it costs you to put in a loan, to put in a rent application, and to put your first month's rent and a security deposit down. You could be walking into your home. And you don't pay a mortgage right away either. You skip a month on the mortgage payment usually. So, just make sure that you talk to a loan officer, even if you don't have traditional credit, because FHA now allows the underwriter to use, utility, cell phone, insurance history to help qualify you for the mortgage. You just have to budget for the monthly mortgage insurance on an FHA loan. That's something over and above. So now just so that you guys know, like the VA loan, if you're a vet, if you served any time in the military, you don't have to be retired. It amazes me how many veterans in this country still do not know about their VA benefits. And one of them is the VA loan. It's incredible because there's no down payment. It's 100% financing. There's no mortgage insurance, which is even more incredible. And you can still get a closing cost credit for up to 7%, meaning that you could, as many home buyers in Clarksville know, you can actually walk into a house and not pay a dime to do it. Okay, so lots of options out there. All right, there's tons of down payment assistance. This is the one that most people miss, and we talked about it again. In Tennessee, THDA, there's local programs you can stack on top of that. And if you're not comfortable calling a loan officer yet, that's okay. I still want you to give me a call at 615-257-0565 to talk to one of our loan officers. But if you're not ready for that, that's okay. call HUD. You can talk to a HUD-approved housing counselor who works for the federal government. And these counselors are hired just to show potential buyers every single program that they can qualify. There is absolutely nothing that they're selling. They don't make a commission. There is no fee for them to do it. You can give them a call at 1-800-569-4287, or you can go to HUD.com/counseling to be connected to them. You can also look at the National Black Homeownership Collaborative. It's the number 3, the word buy, and then number 30.org. That is 3by30.org. So lots of resources out there. I want you to remember this, that girl from Detroit who got to have her girlfriends over for a slumber party. She goes from having an apartment complex that's probably not as safe as living in a single family home. And she gets to play outside in a yard now that her mama owns. And her mom can go out there and tell anybody to leave that yard anytime she wants. That's not a freedom that people who live in an apartment complex can enjoy. There are lots of programs in this country. I think there's a organization called Black Women Build. And what she does is she actually teaches Black women how to build homes and then how to basically buy a fixer-upper to do all the renovations and then own the home that they fixed up. I think it's so incredible, all the things that's going on out there. Now, look, when we come back from the break, I want to talk to you about your game plan, because I do not want you guys to just, we can't sit on this. We got to make sure that we're taking some action and we're moving. I don't want you to be afraid, to be worried, to be concerned, to be embarrassed. I don't want you to feel that way about walking into homeownership. I want you to, really consider the history and to say, I'm not going to be beaten by this system that wants to make me, essentially a renter for the rest of my life, to keep me out of financial freedom, that it does not matter until I am 90 years old. I still have to make sure that I can come up with a rent payment every single month, no matter what Social Security payments I'm getting. I want you to be that person who, when you're 90 years old, all you got to do is come up with property taxes every year, come up with homeowners insurance. And, you have a nest egg of savings. You have, been bailed out of some really tough financial situations because you have the equity in your house to do it. Or if you feel like it, you just want to go buy a little patch of land in the country, go do it. Go move wherever you want, and guess what? You're going to have something to leave to your kids as well. And I think that is so beautiful. What an incredible idea. Our founding fathers, if they had any idea that there were people in this country who could take advantage of homeownership and they choose not to, they would probably be floored. Okay. Now, in our defense too, we don't get to just walk around and survey land and then it becomes ours. So it is definitely a different time. But, we come back from the break. I want to put together our game plan for 2026 so everybody can walk into homeownership together. You're listening to The Real Deal. I'm your host, Kim Hollingshead. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.